Hey, welcome to yoga. We are going to get started today right at the top of your mat where Steve and Stacy are. You're going to get started in a standing position. Your feet are going to be about hips width distance apart, which is approximately 2 fists together in between your feet. So if you can look at that, kind of eyeball that, it's close. A lot of times we think our hips are like this wide. They're usually not, so go about where works for you. You're going to root down through your feet so that your feet are really steady and wobble around a little bit so you can find the middle point there. Shoulders are going to draw up to your ears and then down onto your back. We're just going to take a couple of breaths here. So you can keep your eyes open or close your eyes. You're going to inhale through your nose, expanding through your rib cage. And exhale through your mouth, bringing your shoulders down away from your ears. Again, inhaling, letting your belly fill up, your shoulders fill up. And exhaling through your mouth, belly gently comes back in, everything relaxes. One more time, inhale through your nose. And open mouth, exhale. So keeping your feet exactly where you are, you're going to start to engage through the tops of your legs. You're going to lifting your kneecaps up so we create this strength in our legs. We have a solid foundation in our base, in our body. From here, arms reach up overhead. Fingertips point to the sky. Shoulders are going to come down onto the back away from your ears. So a couple things to notice here. If it's really hard for you to hold your arms up, if that's all your concentration is there, you can bring them out to a goalpost, or you can just bring them down by your sides again. There's no problem with either of those things. The main thing we want to focus on is that base in the legs. Also want to make sure that we're not totally caved in our chest. So the shoulders are going to draw together on the back. And you're gonna bring your belly up and in, and your tailbone is gonna root down. So we're lengthening through the low back. So it looks, instead of having everything sticking out here, we're drawing in through the belly and down through the hips. Alternatively, if this is kind of more how you end up standing, we wanna open up through the chest, create space here in the collarbones so that we're not cutting off our breathing. So we're holding our arms up there for a while, right? Take one more breath in here. And as you exhale, you're going to open your arms wide, chest comes forward, swan dive into a forward fold. So this is a great place to have your blocks. If a forward fold is not easy for you, eventually we'll get to a point where you can touch our toes, but no rush to get there. So if you have your blocks, you can bring them closer and bring the ground up to you. Because a lot of times what happens is we bend our knees, and that never gives us a chance to stretch out our hamstrings. So you want to keep our legs straight, maybe even hands come onto the hips as you fold forward. We create some space here so the legs are strong and steady, and the stretch happens in the lower back and in the neck. So if your head is lifted, we want to make sure that the head is completely lowered and there's space in the back of the neck. From here, inhaling, halfway lift. So your fingertips are going to come to your shins or to your hips. Your spine is flat here. So the hips are going back, the chest is drawing forward. We come to this pose to reset our spine from whatever it is we were just doing. Again, hands can be on the blocks as well if you want that base and your hands out in front of you. Neither one is better than the other, it's just a personal preference. Take one more breath in here, and as you exhale, fold forward, again, potentially with your blocks or with your hands on your legs. Rise all the way back up one more time, open your arms out wide, reach tall, and as you exhale, fold forward, chest comes forward, hands come down. Inhale, halfway lift, lengthen through your spine. And exhale, fold forward, release the head and neck. You're gonna plant your hands here and step back to a plank. Plank can be done either on your toes or on your knees. Shoulders are directly over the wrists. The biggest thing here is notice how my spine is pretty straight here. It's heels all the way out to the crown of my head. We wanna keep that same line when we drop down to our knees. So we're not sticking our butt back, we're not collapsing too much. You have that line, and we're gonna bring that up every time because it's really important to keep that strong line and to keep your body steady. Elbows are drawing in toward your ribs, and from here, you're gonna lower down slowly onto your belly as best as you can, keeping your shoulders on your back. Releasing the tops of your feet when you come to the mat, and as you inhale, you're gonna press into the mat with your hands, lift up through your chest, take a slight spinal extension here into Cobra pose. So chest lifts up, back of the neck stays long, toes stay planted onto the ground. One more inhale. And as you exhale, release down. Coming into child's pose, toes come together. I'm gonna press up, knees come wide to the outer edges of your mat, and sit back towards your heels with your hips. A couple of breaths here, fingertips extend long. This is a great pose to come back to at any time if you need a little bit of a break, if you want to rest, as well as seated. This is a good pose because it brings you close to the ground. It gives you a chance to get your breathing back to normal. If you want to take a pause and hang out here for a while, you can as well. One more breath in child's pose. Then coming up from your knees, you're gonna make your way to downward facing dog. So hands are wide, fingertips are spread wide, hips come up, creating like an upside down triangle with your body. And while you're here, I'm gonna take a couple moments. You bend your knees one at a time or both at once. You bounce a little bit on your toes, heels come up and down. You can shake your head from side to side or up and down. Starting to feel into this pose, and you can notice too, if you're sliding like I am right now, sometimes it helps to walk your hands back a little bit, bring them closer to your feet, or start to press really hard into your fingertips. That's really gonna help you out in creating that base here. Take one more breath in, and open mouth exhale. So for this next move, you're gonna reach your right leg up. You're gonna be just on your left foot and on your hands. Toes might only come a couple inches off the ground. They might lift up a little bit higher. From here, you're gonna bend that right knee and start to open up your hip over to the left side of your body. So your right heel is gonna come toward the left side of your body. Alternatively, if this is a lot for your wrist or for your body to hold, you can come down to all fours, bring that leg back, and open up the hip this way as well. The main thing here is we don't want the left hip to come under. We want to keep that left side body long. Extend that leg long one more time. Bring it up, and then release back to downward facing dog. Bring it to the other side, left leg reaches high. You're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna bend that knee, then open up the hip, knee comes out, and heel walks over toward the right side. As well, you can do that on your knees. You can take a look at Steve. And keep your belly strong, fingertips are rooted down. Extend your leg back up, and release into downward facing dog. From here, right foot is gonna walk up toward the top of your mat, coming into a lunge, taking as many steps as you need to get it up in between your hands. And drop down to your back knee. This is a low lunge, and in low lunge, a couple things you wanna look at. So you wanna make sure that there's space to breathe, and our spine is long. So if that means fingertips don't get to the ground, just grab our blocks and press up so we have a little bit more space to work into the hips. From here, bring your hands up to your knee. And in this pose, a lot of times what happens in poses, we get static. We wanna go there and just hold, but it's actually better for our body if we move in and out of a pose a little bit. So the way to really protect yourself here is left glutes are engaged, so you can work on the hamstring or the hip flexor safely, and that right hip is drawing back in space. So as you move, a lot of times the hips kind of want to open so we can go deeper into the stretch. We want to keep our hips forward in line with our knees and with our toes. So you can stay right here, or you can reach your arms overhead coming into crescent moon. Again, options, you can come to goalpost arms. You can also keep your hands here in front of you. As you reach up, slowly you keep moving that hip forward and down, and when you do that, we want to keep, just like in mountain, drawing the belly in so that there's space and we're supported in our spine as you reach up. One more breath in here. When releasing your hands down, this is another great time to grab your blocks. We're going to come into a half split. So if you can, back toes are tucked under. Hips are going to draw back towards your heel. Your front leg is going to begin to straighten, toes flexing back toward your face. Again, it's great to have blocks here, or if you want to play a balancing act, you totally can. Blocks are super helpful. Notice again those hips. We want that right hip to draw back so everything stays in alignment. Left hip is moving forward. It might mean you don't come down as far, but that's okay. The integrity of our bodies is definitely more important than getting a little bit deeper into our stretch. So from here, I'm gonna come forward, come up off that back knee for just a second, and step back into child's pose. Bring your knees wide, toes come down. Just for a second, let your body relax for a moment. And child's pose too, if this is really uncomfortable for you, a couple options. You can keep your toes tucked under if that helps. You don't have to go back all the way. You can kind of stay up a little bit if you want to, or if it's more comfortable, you can just come to seated, whatever works for you. Child's pose is not feeling good. Take one more breath in and out. And coming up, downward facing dog. And moving into the other side, you're gonna walk your left foot up in between your hands. Again, taking as many steps as you need to get there. Drop down to your back knee. Grab your blocks if you need it. If you find that you're rounding and hunched forward, we really want to start to create that openness and length so that you can still breathe. Awesome. And from here, interlace your hands on top of your knee. We're going to do the same thing on this side. You kind of come in and out of the pose so we're not just static, we keep moving. And if you notice that your knee is super wobbly, we want to check in again in your feet, make sure that everything is steady so we're not rolling to one side or the other. Either keeping your hands where they are, or you can reach your arms up into crescent moon. Perfect. When you come into crescent moon, so the shoulders are drawing onto the back away from the ears. Belly is drawing in so we're not just crunched in the low back. Make sure your knee is right in line with your middle toe, so it's pressing out away from the center line of the body. And from here, coming into half splits, take your blocks with you if you need them. You're going to flex the toes back toward the face, begin to straighten that front leg, hips draw back toward the heel. It helps, you can bring your left hand to that left hip, start to spin it down and back so that our hips stay in alignment. Again, you can bounce a little bit if that feels good, or maybe not feel good, but like feels helpful. Another option as well, if you're feeling pretty good here, you can start to fold into it and bounce in and out that way. That's another way to get some depth there.
I'll let you do that one. I'll just
hang
out here.
Yeah, hang out there. Make sure that that quad stays engaged so that we're not hyperextending through our knee and overstretching our ligaments around the knees. One more breath here. And then slowly come forward, come up off that back knee. You're gonna step your feet together at the front of your mat in a forward fold. One more inhale here. An open mouth exhale. You're gonna bend your knees slightly and slowly roll up one vertebra at a time. Letting your head and neck come up last. Draw shoulders up by the ears and then back and down. So we're practicing that, always opening up here and not staying here. So our next move is chair pose. So for chair pose, your feet can either stay hips width distance apart, or if it's okay for you, you can bring your feet together. And so like we've talked about this before, Stacy's got quads from powerlifting all the time, constantly. So putting her feet together is really, really uncomfortable. And so she is gonna stand with her feet about hips width distance apart. Personal preference for you.
What are you trying to say?
Your quads are great, Steve.
Thank you very much.
So I will show with my feet together. What this is gonna look like is, again, we want that solid base through the feet. Your knees are gonna bend forward enough so that it feels like your heels are gonna lift up, they're still on the ground. So if you have a lot of strain on your knees doing this, back out of it a little bit until you get to a place where you can keep your knees bent without feeling like you're gonna hurt yourself. From there, hips are gonna come back ever so slightly, but knees keep moving forward. So we're like stacking our bones at angles that let us hang out here for a little bit longer than we might think we possibly can. If we put all of our weight back into our hips, it's gonna burn out this area of our body and make our hip flexors even tighter, which we probably don't want. The knees come forward, hips back. I'm gonna start with our hands just right here at our chest. One of the reasons I like to do that is if you press your hands together here, it's gonna turn on your shoulders and it's gonna activate so that everything is drawing in to the center line of the body and help to keep you steady here. Next step, I'm gonna bring your hands out. Fingertips are still active, so we're not just hanging out with our hands. Shoulders draw onto the back. So we keep that integrity of the shoulders. This is a great place to be. If your legs are shaking, that's okay. We got this. Arms can reach in any part of this. They might go all the way up by your ears, depending on your mobility, they might be here. Completely up to you where your arms are gonna go. Making sure the shoulders aren't by the ears, but they're down and away. Awesome, that's enough of that. Stand up, shake it out. Yeah, shake that up for a second. So chair pose shows up in pretty much every yoga class. It's the basis for a lot of poses that we do eventually, so we want to make sure that we are learning how to do that properly. So from chair, we're going to come into a version of frog pose. A lot of us have a hard time getting all the way down. So a full frog pose looks like this. We are going to bring your hands onto your knees. Just going to bring your hips back a little bit. So your toes are pointing out. Knees aren't rolling in, but they stay in line with your toes. And from here, hips are moving back so that it's not just all of the weight forward. Hips come back, and then the chest lifts up. We're gonna do a little bit of a shoulder stretch here. So in this pose, you're gonna take your left shoulder, and you're gonna draw it forward, and you're gonna kind of look over your right shoulder a little bit, pressing your knees away from one another with your hands. Then coming back through center, I'm gonna switch over to the other side, do the right shoulder. And coming back to center, and stand it all the way up and shake it out a little bit. Whew, yeah, do a little shake.
How am I doing with my shaking? Good?
You're doing good. And
I'm gonna practice in this one.
good, it's a good one to practice it. One of the reasons we do this is because also, first of all, you look really cool doing it. Second, if we're engaging our muscles a lot and we're staying super active, what this does is it helps to release the fascia so we're not super stuck in our connective tissue. And so that as we get more flexible and as we get stronger, we're also not just getting tighter, we're keeping our bodies in full range of motion doing that. Awesome, so from here, step back to downward facing dog. Next, inhale, reach your right leg up. And you're gonna walk it through between your hands into a lunge. So this time, your back knee is gonna stay up, although at any point you can drop down to your back knee. Want to make sure that you're in a place where you can still breathe and you can still follow along. Back leg is straight and strong as best as you can. So instead of kind of lunging and letting the knee hang out, you want to activate through the quads, lift up from that inner thigh, and press back through your back heel. This is going to engage the glutes and help support us. And again, we want to make sure those hips are facing forward. From there, with the heel pressing back, the hips can move forward a little bit more and down because we're pushing our weight back to let us go forward. So you in the center are kind of like the movement there. I don't know the science term. Science! Awesome. So from here, from that lunge, you're gonna walk your back foot in about 2/3 of the way. Toes are gonna point out. Doesn't really matter what angle. You can play around with it as you go through these videos and see what works best for you. So this is pyramid pose. That front leg is gonna begin to straighten. And as it straightens again, notice my hips. It's not straightening this way. My left hip is coming forward, my right hip is coming back. If it helps, you can walk that front foot out wider to give you more space for your hips to be straight. Great time again to grab your blocks. That's gonna help. As well, you can let your hands hang. They can come to your hips or they can hang out on your leg. One of the biggest things we wanna make sure of here is that we're not just like hunched over, but we're creating that same length in our spine that we find in a halfway lift. Same thing too, we want to keep this part of the leg engaged. It's actually better to have your knee slightly bent than it is to totally lock out your knee. We want to find that in-between point where we're still active and everything is protective as we stretch here. One more breath in. Slowly bend that front knee as you exhale. You're going to step that back leg back into your lunge. So this is probably a lot of strength right now, but you got one more in you. I know you got it, right guys? Mm-hmm. You're gonna keep everything drawing in, hips forward. You're gonna reach your hands up, coming into crescent lunge. Same thing again, you can always drop down to that back knee, coming into crescent moon. See what's one's a moon, one's a lunge. That's how you remember. Hands again can come to your hips or stay in goalpost, or they can come to center. Whatever you wanna do here. Same thing, back leg is strong, glutes are engaged. Press back in order to move forward. Make sure we're not just collapsed, so we're always lifting up even as we press down and let our hips get heavy. One more breath in here. And bring your hands down, step back to down dog, and find child's pose for just a moment. Breathe. Notice your right side versus your left side. There's a lot into the outer edge of that right leg and the right hips. One of the reasons that it's good to come down and rest so often is that when we do something intensive, We engage our muscles that way when we're engaging our brain and our focus that way. And then we relax everything. It's allowing us a little bit of time in our bodies to make those adjustments so that our muscles can remember what we're doing, so that next time it gets a little bit easier. Or if not easier, we at least remember what we're doing a little bit more. Take one more breath in here. When you're ready, come on up to downward facing dog. Moving into the other side, left leg reaches high. You're gonna walk it up in between your hands into a lunge. Again, great time to grab blocks if it's gonna help to give you a little bit more lift here. So we're not just collapsing over that leg, we actually have a nice straight spine. Back leg is lifting up, so you're lifting up from your back inner thigh, engaging the glutes, pressing back through your heel so the hips can start to move forward and down. If you notice that your leg is wobbling a lot, you can check in with that front foot, make sure that all edges of the feet are down and the knee is moving in line with the middle toes. Nice. From here, walk the back foot into about 2/3 stance. Heel comes down. The front knee begins to straighten. Again, it's less important that it's straight all the way and more that we stay active through the top. Notice your hips. You want to make sure that that right hip is coming forward and the left hip is coming back. And hands are gonna start to reach down. It's gonna give you a nice stretch in that outer left leg. Great time as well to grab blocks to make sure that that side body stays long here as well. So we move the hips in line with the knees and with the ankles, partly so that they're active, but also so that we're not crunching into one side. So you crunch into one side, it's harder to breathe in that side, and then we're not breathing evenly into both sides of our body, which since a lot of us are imbalanced already anyway, we want to try and correct some of those imbalances in yoga as much as possible. From here, you're gonna bend that front knee again, walk your foot back into a lunge, taking your time to get there. And playing with your balance, come on up, reach up for crescent lunge. Again, hand position of your choice. Keep pressing back through that back heel, lifting up through the inner thigh. Draw your belly in so that we're not just crunching in the low back, but we're creating that strength. Nice, shoulders draw down away from the ears. One more breath in here. Then as you exhale, release your hands down, step back through down dog into child's pose. And from child's pose, you're gonna come forward and onto your stomach. Tops of your feet are gonna be on the mat. Palms are gonna face down and press into the mat by your sides. For this first variation, we're gonna do Iron Man pose. We're gonna do 3 variations.
Yes.
Yes, Iron Man. So shoulders are gonna rotate onto your back, and you're gonna press into your hands and feet and start to lift up. Your legs are probably gonna activate, your glutes will be slightly activated. You're gonna lift up through your back. Keep breathing here. You wanna make sure there's space in the neck so that we're still moving the shoulders away from the ears. Your gaze, you're probably looking down at your mat. We're here for 3. Last 2. And 1. Slowly lower down. Relax all your muscles and bring one cheek to the mat. Hang out here for just a second. Coming back to center. You're welcome to do that same variation again. They're all strengthening the spine. The next one is a little bit more challenging. We're gonna do the same thing, shoulders on the back. And as you lift up this time, your hands are also gonna lift up. Fingers stay active so the arms aren't just hanging out. Fingers active, shoulders roll open, triceps draw in toward one another. Keep breathing. On the inhales, you can lift up a little bit. On the exhales, lower slightly. Last 3, 2, and 1. Release down, bring your other cheek to the mat. Relax everything. How are we doing, guys?
Great.
Awesome.
How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Yes.
I'm ready for full Ironman. So, final version of Ironman. Exactly the same thing with the arms and with the chest. This time we're also gonna lift the feet. So as you come up, your feet are gonna lift, arms are gonna lift. You wanna bring the feet together as much as you can. Lift up through the heels, draw the fingertips back toward your feet, and breathe here. Again, check in at the back of that neck. Make sure you're still breathing. It's better to be lower and be able to breathe than up here and like dying. So
Can we make Iron Man noises?
make as many noises as you want. It'll help.
If I'm not in a suit or I'd fly right through you. No.
We're here for 3. Last 2. And 1. Release down. You can either stay right here or find child's pose. Totally up to you which one you prefer. This will give a nice stretch in the lower back and help to neutralize the spine after we just did all of that strengthening. We are almost done. So one more move, just finish out that neutralization of the spine, which sounds really fancy, but it's not. So you're gonna come up from child's pose.
Oh, you fancy, huh?
You're gonna make your way onto your back. Knees can stay bent, lower down. And from here, arms are gonna come either to a goalpost or out wide like a T. And your knees are gonna fall over to the right side of your body. It's a great place if you want a little bit of support if your knee doesn't go all the way to the ground, to grab a block and put it underneath your knee. Your right hand can also help to guide your knees across the body here. Just do a quick reset, twist through the spine. Coming back through center, bring the knees up and over to the left. Again, with the block, bring your block with you. That opposite shoulder blade's on the side to the right. I'm gonna work it down toward the ground. So as the shoulder goes one way, the knees and the hips are going the other way. And coming back up through center, bring your knees toward your chest. Wrap your hands around your legs and give yourself a big hug here. As you did it, you completed your yoga session today. Great work. Now for the final pose, corpse pose, where we get to lay and relax. So legs come down by long, arms come by your sides. Do whatever you need to do to get out any twitching or any fidgeting. And if this isn't comfortable for you to lay with everything flat, a couple options are to bring your feet underneath your knees. Maybe you roll to one side or to the other. It's possible that you might end up seated. Whatever pose works for you, whatever position feels good for you to be comfortable, go to that space. So this is really the time when, as we relax, we release any tension that we're holding in your jaw, in your forehead, in your shoulders. This is the place where your body really gets to integrate the effects of the practice that you just did. So in this session, we worked on activating our muscles. We stretched out certain areas of our body, focused on creating a foundation through our feet all the way up to the top of our head, and working on having good posture throughout. And so now, while you're here, your body is running a little upgrade on your system. So every time you do your yoga video, every time you do a session, you're bringing it in a little bit more. Your body's understanding it a little bit better. You're getting a little bit stronger, a little bit more flexible every single time. Feel free to stay here as long as you can. And if you're ready to come out of this pose and move on with your day, you start to wiggle your fingers and toes. Roll out your wrists and your ankles. Take one deep breath here. And taking your time, making your way to a seated position. You might be seated cross-legged, you might be up on your knees, you might be seated in a completely different way. We're gonna take one big breath together. Inhale through your nose. And open mouth, exhale. Great work today. You did it. You finished your yoga session. Go celebrate, go enjoy. You guys are awesome. Nice work. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.